Welcome to Nourished by Spinneys, the podcast which promises to inspire you to eat well and live well. I'm Tiffany Eslick.
And I'm Devina Devecha. This is a space where we hope to nourish your heart and soul. On this show, we chat with leading players in the food community, from farmers to foodies, as well as health and well-being experts. It's all about engaging conversations and fresh ideas.
So, as you can probably pick up, Davina is not in the room with me. She's traveling out of town, so dialing into our chat today.
Yes, so it's really good that you're leading today's interview.
And a long overdue one at that. I'm joined today by Chef Himanshu Saini, the chef behind the award-winning Tresind here in Dubai. They opened in 2014 with a take on what they call a progressive Indian fine dining experience. And since then, they've opened additional restaurants and brands, for example, Carnival by Tresind, the all-vegetarian Avatara, which you'll hear more about on the podcast soon. And now they've separated Tresind Studio, their immersive degustation experience, into its own location on the Palm. And Chef Himanshu shared some of their plans to open more restaurants in India as well.
That's a spectacular 10-year journey. Tiff, do you remember the first time you visited?
Wow. I know that I visited really early on with the launch of Tresind Studio, but then like Carnival by Tresind, I can't remember. I've been so many times, I love it. I'm a dedicated fan.
Yeah, I can't quite remember which year it was that I visited first either, but I've been to Tresind Studio, Carnival, and with Tresind Studio, I do remember thinking at the time that there wasn't quite anywhere like that in Dubai at the time that I'd personally experienced anyway. And now, honestly, it's just a whole other ball game. I've loved every single visit there. It's been so exciting to see their journey and all the awards that they've won since then.
And there isn't an award or recognition they haven't won recently, right? They're ranked number 11 on the world's 50 best list. They were awarded Homegrown Restaurant of the Year by Go Meilleur. And earlier this year, Tresind Studio was awarded 2 Michelin stars. So I sat down with Chef Himanshu at their new Palm Jumeirah location with a backdrop of all their awards and a plate.
Like a dinner plate?
Yes, there was a framed, for want of a better word, plate that looked like a guest had eaten, loved the food, and drew a heart in it with his finger. And that guest, as I found out, was Massimo Bottura, the Italian restaurateur behind 3 Michelin star Osteria Francescana, and whose restaurant in Dubai, Torno Subito, was awarded a Michelin star last year as well.
He came to eat first time when he was opening Torno Subito. The studio is always operational in dinner, but we specially opened for him in lunch.
Okay.
Then he came, and this is one of the main plates. He loved it.
Yeah.
Then he just did it out of like he's a big heart, and it was a special moment. And I don't know, for some reason, I thought maybe I just keep it like that.
Yeah.
And then we framed it, and then we put a resin paint on it to preserve it. And then he came second time, so we showed it to him.
Yeah.
He was surprised, and then he signed at the back.
Okay.
Said, "I want to sign it." People like these who were visionaries, who've changed how the world is eating right now, I think they come with some amount of good luck with them.
Yes.
So I think this is something which I feel is always a blessing to us, that he's now eaten 3 times with us. Every time he wants to come, he let us know. We open specially for him in lunch.
Yeah.
So I think it's something which deserves a place like this.
Absolutely. It's such a great
So
talking
it's
point.
always memorable.
When you talk about people who are changing the way we eat, you're incredibly humble because you're changing the way that we eat.
We try.
Who else do you kind of look at for inspiration, or who have you looked at over the years? Or yeah.
The way I cook, the way I run this restaurant, or in my life personally, I have a different philosophy. I always look for something which is unique and different. And of course, I really look up to Massimo Bottura, or anyone who has done something to an ethnic cuisine, because we all know, we think we know about Italian food, but then if you ask someone, they would name you 5-6 dishes, and that's what they know about. You ask someone with Italian food, they'll name you a pizza or a pasta,
Yeah.
or a lasagna, and then ravioli, tortellini. It's all forms of pastas and pizzas, but then then the imagination stop, then
Yeah.
people stop pursuing and go ahead. So for me, anyone who is doing, like for me, Chef Orfali also has a great regard for him, because what he's doing for an ethnic cuisine like a Syrian cuisine is something which the world was not aware, and he's bringing it to this city, and of course his style and vision, and of course the restaurant in Dubai has so much an outreach, that in terms of ingredients, in terms of people who come to eat, so you can, I call my cuisine not modern anymore. I think it's an evolution. Modernization has always happened with any cuisine for over the years. Like for Indian cuisine, I think when Portuguese come to India, they brought something to India. When Mughal came, they brought something to us. So anything, I think any chef who, like even for Chef Gregoire, what he does with his cuisine is something which really excites me, because they're doing something unique, and they're all homegrown restaurants. So they don't come in with their famous dishes from elsewhere, and you kind of replicate that. They have adapted themselves to the city, to the produce, to what is available, what is not available. And I think cooking for people in Dubai is very difficult. So I have great regard for everyone, all the homegrown chefs in Dubai. I think they're all inspirational, in their own way.
Yeah.
Even, for example, Chef Neha Mishra from Kinoya.
Yeah.
It just fills my heart when I see Indian doing so precise job, especially Japanese food needs so much of precision, and like you can't tell if it's Indian or a Japanese who's cooking it. And when I go there, sometime I see Japanese eating. For me, that's the biggest success of that place. And now she's opened up in Harrods, which is another iconic place, and to find a spot there to do well. So I'm a big believer of an underdog stories,
Yeah.
So I think I can't name few. There are many chefs who I look up to for many different reasons,
Yeah. When did you first step foot in the kitchen? Like, were you 5 years old, or can you remember?
It's like another Bollywood story.
Okay, tell me.
No, because it's my maternal grandparents' house was like a very big house, and there were almost 50 people.
Oh gosh.
Big extended family,
Yeah.
My grandfather, his brother, and his like extended family used to stay together, and it was a fairly big house. And imagine when you're cooking food for 50 people every day, it's a mini banquet.
Yeah.
And then my grandmother used to give everyone an assigned job. You know how it happens in kitchen.
Yeah.
And one of my aunt's job was just to knead the dough. So she would get the wheat and then pick the right ones, and then grind it herself, and then make a dough every day.
Yeah.
And then somebody's job is to get the spices, roast them, grind them, mix them. One job is just to do the pickles. The one who is the naughty one gets to do the dishes.
Was that you?
No, I mean to say in terms of my aunts and my uncles.
Yeah.
But not the men. Back in the day, the man of the house was not part of the kitchen, especially in India. Now it's changed. But then I think that was my first memory of how a kitchen should be, how people have been assigned to do a certain job. I used to follow my mother all around, so spend a lot of time with her in the kitchen, helping her peeling the green peas. It used to come, because for 50 people, it used to come like in kilos. So one afternoon, everybody would sit down and just peel the peas.
Yeah.
So it was a fun activity. I think that was whenever I used to go at their house, I always involved myself in playing or helping, giving a hand wherever possible in the kitchen, and eating, of course. That's a big thing. So it was very organically been inherited in my personality, in my sense. Of course, my mother is a good cook herself. So after I finished my high school, I was only eligible enough to sit for the hospitality college exam. And it was very surprising, because I hated studies all my life. And the moment I enrolled myself into hospitality college, I could see that I started enjoying. My grades were improving, and it's something which I would do when I'm getting bored also. So we've covered all the aspects of a hotel. So from front of the house reservations to housekeeping to kitchen. And in kitchen, you start with, the first year is always the French cooking. So you were learning basic soups and sauces, which was very boring. Don't mention this to Chef Gregoire, but in school it was quite boring. But then second year started doing Indian food, regional Indian food, and that's how my interest was growing more and more.
Okay.
After school, I got it. I gave my interview for one of the first jobs interviews I've sat for, and I got the job, which was opening of Indian accent. So I think then I said many things. I didn't have to think much about it. It was just happening on its own, and I was just following it.
And is that how you then started bringing in other influences into Indian cuisine?
So Indian accent was one of the first modern day
Yeah.
Indian restaurant, and then it was surprising for me because Chef Manish, who was my mentor, he has an Oriental background, so he's been running Chinese, Thai, Asian restaurants, and it was also his first Indian restaurant. So it was very surprising when he started cooking Indian food. I could see oyster sauce in the kitchen, I could see soy sauce in the kitchen, I could see a lot of Asian ingredients, and how he's using it intelligently with Indian food, always in shadows, miso in cooking, and so it was very refreshing. And I think it was back in the day the best kitchen for any young chef to be in, because for me Indian food before joining that kitchen was what we were taught in school and what we have eaten at homes and what we've seen on the streets. But then he tried to make it more interesting, incorporating more elements, more ingredients, and I think from that onwards the openness in terms of cooking came into existence. And I've only worked under him as a chef. Otherwise, I worked in that kitchen for 5 years. I was a trainee, and then when I was leaving, I was a sous chef. So I think that kitchen is very special for me, I think.
How long have you actually been with Tresind Studio, and tell me about the group behind it?
So Tresind Studio is just 5 years old. We opened Tresind Studio in 2018, but our first restaurant was Tresind, which opened in 2014. It was a vision of Mr. Nath, who is the owner of the group, and his dad used to have his restaurant in his hometown, Patna in Bihar. So he was already from a F&B hotelier background, but his dad lost that restaurant with partnerships with many problems, and then he always had this dream that one day he would open a restaurant of its own and then give it back to his dad. So he started off with just one restaurant as a passion project. That's why our group is called Passion F&B. And then it's commendable to see that from 2014 to 2023, Passion F&B and Mr. Nath has managed to open 9 restaurants in Dubai.
Yeah.
And we have 1 restaurant in Mumbai. By the end of this year, early next year, we would have 3 more in India.
Oh.
We have Carnival by Tresind, which opened next after Tresind. And then we opened Tresind Studio in Tresind, Mumbai in the same year. We had Acapella, Maison de Curry. It's a brand which we launched last year in Sukal Bahar.
Yeah.
Then Avatara with the great success at the old Tresind Studio location. Now got a Michelin star this year, which is now going to open in Mumbai very soon. So I think Mr. Nath is probably the only person I want to thank, because without his support, the kind of freedom he has given us, especially with Tresind Studio, because this is a project we don't make money. It's a project we have to fulfill our passion, to showcase the cuisine of our country and what we can offer as a group also. So this has become our flagship restaurant now. And as I mentioned, that to run a project like this, you need an absolute support and freedom, and that's what he offers. So a big thanks to him.
Yeah.
Now our group has about 350 employees.
Yeah.
So he's responsible to feed 350 families. So it's getting bigger and bigger. So we're so proud that we could have job opportunities for many people. I have people who've been working with me from last 9 years. Ever since we opened Tresind, they've been with us.
Yeah, that's so important.
Yes. I think there's going to be many more successful years in this company.
Yeah.
He always tells me that you're going to retire with him, and one day we'll just play golf and and smoke a cigar and drink a wine. So that's the plan. Maybe next 20 years. Let's see.
just having known you over a number of years, not incredibly well, but I know you, and having eaten at your restaurant when it was in the last location, and now like you bring this air of calmness
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
and whenever you step into the room, you feel calm as a guest. So, is that one of your like do's that you're very conscious of? And what is your ethos of running a restaurant?
See, the first thing of why Tresind Studio is like this is, of course, all the chefs you would find in my kitchen, most of them has been working with me from last 9 years. So they know what I demand from them. They know what kind of flavors and taste I expect, what kind of ethics I expect them to have in the kitchen. So there are many things which goes without saying now, and it's mostly because of that. We don't do lunch service, so the chefs have ample amount of quiet time to prep everything to perfection, and then in the service it is so well rehearsed now that sometimes we just know from an eye contact that what needs to be done. If I need something, if I don't need something, and so I think it can only happen when you have people working with you and I know them, they know me. So the calmness which you're referring to is of course with Vipin handling the restaurant, and Hina is also being part of the service. They bring a lot on the table. And I think in terms of how to run a restaurant, we have set ourselves certain philosophies and rule. The first biggest rule we set for ourselves is that we will only cook what we love to eat ourselves. So coming in from North India, and mostly all the chefs in the kitchen, they are North Indians. And North Indians, trust me, they're not good fish eaters.
Okay.
Of course, there is freshwater fishes up in the north, and it's amazing. But then it was not something which was really part of our culture. Of course, when I'm going out, I'm eating somewhere, I can eat it. But then I would say to myself, if there's something which I'm not 100% confident of myself, my palate is not 100%, doesn't know what is right, what should be the right texture, I have no idea about it.
Yeah.
So I would not, how could I make it interesting for someone who's coming into the restaurant? So in last 5 years, I have never done a fish dish in my recipe in my restaurant.
Okay.
Can you believe
Yeah,
that?
true, actually.
Yeah, there's always shellfish,
Yeah.
but there's never a fish preparation. So we always, even if there is something which would, of course, we do experimentation and everything when we do collaborations. That's our playground.
Yeah.
And there we try a lot of things to get used to it, to still feel that, at some point of time, we are using it to get used to it, and then maybe we have it in the menu. So it happened with many ingredients. We first started cooking with lobster. We've done many trials, versions, cooked in many collaborations, and now it's like a mainstay in the menu. The second biggest thing what we try to follow is to stay away from luxury ingredients, and we just don't use it for the need to use it, for the sake of using it. And I think by just following these two rules, we set ourselves apart from many restaurants who follow the trend. Of course, they know how to keep up with them. We don't know, but then even doing that, it just makes the menu have a very different outcome. Or Dubai as a city trends on luxury ingredients.
Yeah.
But it's mostly with a restaurant from overseas, because that's how their concept worked there. So they try to replicate all of that here. But I think these two philosophies is something which sets us apart. And apart from this too, another one, how we try to do the menu is saying that there are 20 dishes in the menu. 11 of them are vegetarian dishes. So there's only one way where you can make people eat 20 dishes is to have a balance of meat and vegetables. Even though dishes which has animal protein, it's always used for me as a secondary ingredient on the plate. For me, the dish of lobster is not about lobster. The dish of lobster is everything else about lobster. The lobster is just there so that you can enjoy the curry, for example.
Yeah.
Or a dish of the crab in a cinnamon bark is not about the crab. It's about cinnamon. It's about a blend of spice which is enhanced through the sweetness and meatiness of. So it's the other way around. Like if you go to a European kitchen, you have the meat on the plate, and then you have a side dish to go along with it. For me, we follow the other way around.
Okay.
And then I believe that I don't believe in a concept of signature dishes, because I mentioned that I always believe in the process of evolution. So what you've eaten few days back is not something which we have brainstormed a couple of months, 3 months, 4 months ago. Of course, there are many things which we thought of in last 2, 3 months, but every element on what you've eaten is something which is in the process. We are using it from last 15 years of my cooking. So maybe a pickle somewhere 4 years ago with many new understanding or new technique has become something else over these years. So for me, every dish is not a complete dish. Every dish is not a final dish. It has a scope. Every element, sauce, curry, every vegetable has a scope to become better, or taking inspiration from what it is today and then making it better for tomorrow.
When we come back, we'll chat about the evolution of their menu. That's right after the short break. Welcome back. You're listening to Nourished by Spinneys and my conversation with Chef Himanshu Saini of Tresind Studio. Having eaten here recently, and you can see that there's so much kind of, not history, but like thought and experience that has gone into your menu. There's a lot that you take in. There's so many interesting facts about, as you're going through the different regions and the different tastes. It's fascinating. And to hear behind the thinking behind that is very interesting.
I think that is something also which we are really proud of, because it just again sets up apart from many Indian restaurants also, because we are not just serving Indian food. And this is an approach which we developed from last year, because before last year also, when I started to travel a lot, and at many moments I was asked to speak on the stage about Indian food, modern Indian food. Whenever I used to go and speak about it, at some point I always felt that there is a disconnect between the audience and what I'm speaking, because people don't know about Indian food. So there is no point of talking about how modern the Indian food has become, or how progressive we can approach we can follow to make it interesting. And that's what, when I come back, and one of the time I was in Croatia and I was speaking about modern Indian food, halfway through I realized that I was not making sense to anyone. I just randomly asked that if anyone in the crowd can name me 5 Indian dishes, and there was no answer.
Oh my goodness.
So, and that was one trip. I came back and I asked myself that there is no point of doing what we are doing unless we little bit try to educate people that what is Indian food. Indian food is not as unknown as Syrian food, for example. What Chef Arfali is doing is also amazing. But then again, it's a very stereotypical narrative about Indian food. It has to have a curry, or it has to be hot. It has to have a bread or a kebab or a rice. And then for me, Indian food is something which cannot be described into one sentence, 2 sentence, few words. It's not possible. For me, it's as diverse, as big as Chinese food, where a Cantonese is totally different with Sichuan or any cuisine. So, and that's how we developed this approach, that we initially last year we did the regions, but we did it with northwest, east, south, which was, I think, a good step to begin with. And then after 1 year, we thought we go with actual physical dimensions, where we can actually give a lot of sense to the ingredients, that why it is being used in this region, why it is being grown more here. But I think that is something which is really pushed us. It's a difficult approach, because otherwise, I had dishes in our library which are better dishes than what I served you, to be honest. There are some dishes which are amazing tasting dishes, but I couldn't just put it anywhere in the menu. Back in the day, I could have a list of 15 best tasting dishes in my menu, but now it's not even about that. It's about getting the right dishes for the right region. It's about to get the balance right, because you're serving 20 dishes, to get the portions right, to get the mouthful, the bites, everything in right proportions. So we made it difficult for ourselves. It's going to be more challenging going forward, but I think it's the right approach. Every time now a guest eats in our restaurant, they say that we've learned something about the country, and it's probably the only Indian meal or Indian restaurant which would have no bread or a rice. Which is, of course, you can get many places.
So that's refreshing.
We try to stay away.
Yeah.
And also, Indian food, which is popular out of India, I'm leaving Dubai and London out because it has more awareness about Indian food. But everywhere else, people refer to Indian food as a North Indian food. That's the only genre which is popular. But then there is so much to offer from other parts of the country. The South India is for me is a treasure in terms of cooking also, but it's something which is not explored to its potential. And the other thing about myself is that I've come from an agricultural background. My great grandfathers were all farmers to begin with, and then they moved ahead in their lives and they become like a middleman.
Yeah.
And I think that's something which is also very organically, it comes out in our dishes. When you see them, they have so many elements of plants and everything.
Yeah.
And that's also the intention when we took up this space here on the terrace, that we wanted to set up our own garden, which is a very challenging job again. There are few things which we can do in summers, but now going forward till April, May is something which we always look forward to.
What are you going to be growing?
So
What are you growing? Yeah.
so right now we're doing hibiscus. Mostly the things which we are doing right now is for the bar program, and then certain things in the kitchen like the hibiscus flowers. We have 500 hibiscus plants which survived the heat all summer, and now they're blooming with a lot of flowers. So we dry the flowers and we use them in the cocktails. Then we have at least 10 banana trees. So we use the leaves for plating and presentation, for cooking something as well. Then we planted papaya trees. We keep on experimenting to see what works, what doesn't work. Also, it's very surprising that even certain things can be still manageable to do in summers because we are just very close to the sea. So there is always a humidity around this area, which helps few plants to perform better. And then we do a mountain basil. It has amazing small flowers. Even the tiny one flower has so much flavor. I think it's equivalent to 2 leaves of basil.
wow.
It's just so pungent and so flavorful. Then going forward, we would have cucumber coming in, fig trees we are planting because we use fig leaves for the bar program. And mostly, to be honest, it's not everything what we going to grow is going to be utilized in our kitchen. It's mostly being there for bad days. If I start using whatever produce we have on the terrace, it's going to be gone in a week,
Yeah.
and then we can't wait for 10 days. So it's all been set up in a way where we don't have to depend in terms of and supply being missed, because a lot of times we have produce which is expected to come and then for some reason it is not there, and we have a set menu. The menu is already printed, so we can't write in the menu and something is not available from it.
I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about the different regions, not go into great detail because I don't want to give it all away to all our listeners because everyone needs to come and try your menu.
Yeah.
But just touch on the different regions and a few characteristics of them from the cuisine.
One of the first regions which we showcase in our menu is the Thar Desert. And it's something also which is not very commonly been spoken about. And you would not find many restaurants adopting those ingredients also, or those preparations, because now it's so multicultural that what is available in the south will also be available in the west. Everything is accessible. But then we just talk about few ingredients like of course with the climate there is a lot of chilies being used because it's so hot in that region. And back in the day, the chilies are being consumed to maintain the temperature of the body. The more you sweat, the more colder your body temperature is going to get. So that's how they get into chilies. So everywhere in India where you find hot preparations, the first primary reason back in the day, now it's just part of their culture, but it has been started from those days where people want to maintain the body temperature, and chilies was one of the ways to do that. And Rajasthan, where most of the Thar Desert is known for its chilies. And of course, back in the day, of course, there was no method of preserving food. There were hardly any vegetables and leaves growing in there and plants. So most of the things which they could get from other parts of the country, they would bring, or whatever they were growing in the season, they try to preserve it. So pickling was one of the oldest and the unique methods which is still being followed today. And we reflect all of that in our menu. For example, we have a preparation which is just dedicated to the pickling spices, because the pickling also which happens in India in general is very different to the pickling methods of the West. Indian pickles you see are mostly based out of mustard oil. So we highlight those pickling flavors with the pepper. Of course, we bring in a form of chili, but not as hot. We fry the pepper in the chickpea tempura. It's something we make in the kitchen. And chickpea as an ingredient is also very common. Lot of time chickpea flour is used as a thickener in the curries. They make the pastry like a kachori for the street food. Um, so chickpea flour is used in many ways. So we make a tempura, we fry the pepper with the tempura, and then we fill it with the emulsion of our pickling spices. We make our own. It's not a very traditional one, but we try to make our own blend of the spices. And then we serve a buttermilk curry along ice cream of buttermilk curry along with it. It's one of the popular dishes in the menu. And even the use of dairy is also quite big because um there was a scarcity of water and anything to do with dairy, milk, butter, buttermilk, cream, and all of these things you would see highly being used in the cuisine. And then we have a dish just based out of the cactus, the Nopales cactus. It's amazing that we call it Nopales because in India we call it Nagfani, and but of course in the world it is known by the name Nopales, the prickly pear one. And it's something which is of course in the region it's grown in abundance, but now a lot of people don't use it. I think for sure back in the day there were preparations, but now you don't see them anywhere in even in the regional kitchens there. So it's something which I feel very happy that we can brought in such ingredients. And of course when I see the trend, I'm sure that many young chefs will pick it up, and then will try to do something amazing with it. So for me, every menu we try to bring in at least 4 or 5 new ingredients which we have not worked in the past, mostly vegetables or herbs or plants, and then we see how we can incorporate in the menu. So yeah, I think uh, I can go on and on about
All the different, yeah.
it's an endless conversation, but yeah, in the menu we try to explain the region based out of our dishes so that people can connect more. Then going forward, we have Deccan Plateau, which is probably the biggest region. It is that area which surrounded with the eastern and western Ghats. So, so the whole monsoon cycle and the rainfall is been affected by this region. So you will find many crops, rice. You will still find coconut. In the menu, we have an amazing story with coconut. We utilize it to its fullest form. Like when you enter as a welcome drink, we serve you the coconut water, and then in one of the dishes, we served you the flesh of the coconut as a kebab, as a skewer. The next one dish has the first press of the coconut. Following dish, we use the second press of the coconut, and then we use the shell of the coconut. Sometimes we use to smoke anything, the husk of it. So for me, it's very interesting to see that in our menu we have so many applications of coconut. Even as a palm tree, for example, we use the heart of palm. And then when we go to the north, we go to more rustic, more humble food. And then we do one rustic dish of mushrooms from the northeast part of India. So we make a preparation of noodles, but we don't use noodles. We use the mushroom, the king oyster. We cut it like noodles and then we cook it with an exo sauce. We make out of mushrooms only. And then it has the mushroom broth, it has morels, it has pickled mushrooms. So it has the whole hearty bowl of mushrooms.
It was an umami
Yes.
flavor bomb, and I
Yeah,
thought the noodles
yeah.
were so clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the another aspect of our cooking is something to do with the broths.
Yes, you are the king of broths. Like when I knew I was coming, I was like, I'm so looking forward to having more of your broth.
And I think it just started out of nowhere, to be honest. We just did one time a broth preparation and it just been loved by everyone. So we thought, okay, we explore another direction.
Because that's not actually really
It's-
Indian cuisine, right?
No,
Like the
no,
broth,
there
yeah.
was, but what we do, we try to bring out Indian flavors in something which is a hearty liquid.
There's so much depth to your broth. It's like you're going on your own journey just in the broth, you
It's
know?
just that how we think. My first intention is to treat a broth same as a dish. Even a broth can have all the flavors of what can go in a dish, but then you have to transform it use certain ingredients, spices at the right time in right proportions, use fat in certain way. Yeah, so it's something which we are really proud of. I think it's something which is being made in the restaurant. So really proud. Now we have at least, I think, 5 broth dishes in the menu. I think one day we'll probably pair it with the broth only,
Great.
if not with alcohol or with drinks.
I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
We ask everybody on our podcast because it's called Nourish by
Yeah.
Spinneys. So, what nourishes your soul?
A bowl of ramen. I think that's where my love from broth must have been, there. I can enjoy a bowl of ramen any day. And I think that is where I find my love for the broths, and it's so comforting. It's not heavy, it's healthy at the same time. You can put in so many vegetables to it, meat, proteins, noodles. And I think it's just a meal on its own sometimes, and I miss it. Like recently, Chef Neha at Kinoya, she's made her the duck version of a ramen bowl, and for me, I just when I'm sad, I think about it, and it just makes me happy. I think that's one weakness I have. I think it's a bowl of ramen which is healthy and it's comforting. Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time,
Thank you so
Himanshu.
much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too. I feel like I could talk for another 3 days, but yes, you've got work to do tonight. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay, cool.
So that was really a unique answer. I mean, we've had cooking as an answer to what nourishes people, but a specific dish is a first, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not going to argue with that though. A bowl of ramen is one of the best comfort foods out there. I find it fascinating that he said he can just think about a bowl of ramen when he's sad and that it helps him.
I mean, I'd have to agree with that. When you're sad or when it's cold or it's raining, warm, comforting broth and noodles, it's perfect.
We'll have a few more details from the Rising India menu and the concept behind their dishes on a bonus episode that will be out next week, so stay tuned for that. This episode was brought to you by Spinneys and is hosted by me, Tiffany Eslick, and Davina Devicha. We're produced by Chirag Desai. You can follow Spinneys on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for more. And also visit us at spinneys.com, where you can shop for fresh produce and a variety of local and exclusive products. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new guest. See you then.